Claire was the kind of woman who made men reckless. The first time I saw her, I understood why men threw away their marriages, their careers, their entire lives for women like her. She had a presence that commanded attention, the kind of beauty that made men forget logic, and a charm so intoxicating it felt like a privilege just to be in her orbit. And for years, I considered myself one of the lucky ones. I wasn't some fool she lured in for a fleeting moment of passion. No, I was the man. The one she had chosen to marry. The one she had promised forever to. But Claire wasn't built for forever. She was built for conquest. And I should have seen it coming. Looking back, the signs were always there. The way she craved admiration, not just from me, but from everyone. How she lit up when other men noticed her. When they leaned in just a little too close. When their eyes lingered just a little too long. She never crossed the line. At least, not that I saw. Until she did. The night it all started. I remember everything. We were at an upscale gala. One of those events where the room smelled like old money and expensive perfume. Claire was in her element, floating through the crowd with a glass of champagne in hand, dazzling everyone in sight. I stood by the bar, watching as she laughed at a joke someone told. Her hand brushed his arm, just briefly, just enough to look casual. But I knew Claire too well. It wasn't an accident. And the way he looked at her, the subtle smirk, the flicker of triumph in his eyes, he knew it too. That was the first time I felt it, that uneasy, twisting feeling in my gut. The kind that told me something was shifting. I ignored it. Or maybe I just didn't want to believe that the woman I had built my life around was already looking for the next best thing. But as I would soon find out, Claire wasn't just looking. She had already found him. And she was planning her escape. Claire was always a step ahead. That's why, when she started cheating, she didn't make the usual mistakes. She didn't come home smelling like another man. She didn't suddenly lose interest in me. She didn't pick fights just to justify her absence. No, she played it perfectly. So perfectly that I almost didn't see it. For weeks after that gala, I told myself I was imagining things. That the way she checked her phone a little too often was nothing. That the way she smiled when she read certain messages was just habit. But then, the late night started. "Don't wait up for me," she would say, kissing me on the cheek before heading out. Networking event. Or, "Mia and I are having a girls' night." She always had an excuse, always delivered it with a flawless smile and a touch so casual it could disarm a bomb. And every time, I nodded. Pretended I believed her. Because I needed more than suspicions. I needed proof. It didn't take long to get it. A friend of mine, Jason, worked as a bartender at a high-end lounge downtown. The kind of place where wealthy men and beautiful women whispered secrets over overpriced cocktails. One night, he texted me, "Jason, your wife's here. And she's not alone." My hands went cold. I typed back, "Me? Are you sure?" "Jason, I know what your wife looks like, man. And unless you suddenly got a lot taller, richer, and more entrepreneurial, she's got a new type." My chest tightened. I could have rushed there, caught her in the act, made a scene. But Claire was calculating. If I confronted her now, she would just lie. Twist it into a misunderstanding. I needed to see it for myself. So I got in my car and drove. I arrived 20 minutes later. The lounge was dimly lit, buzzing with soft conversation and the clinking of expensive glasses. I moved through the crowd, my pulse roaring in my ears. And then I saw her, sitting at a corner booth, leaning in close to a man I had never seen before. He was younger, tall, sharp features, tailored suit that probably cost more than my mortgage. Claire's hand rested lightly on his wrist as she laughed at something he said, her body angled toward him in a way that told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't their first time meeting. She wasn't testing the waters. She had already jumped in. I stood there for a long moment, watching my beautiful, intelligent, ruthless wife. The woman who had vowed to love me forever, now giving another man the look she used to give me. I clenched my fists. I could have walked over, could have called out her name and shattered the illusion she was living in. But then what? She'd cry, apologize, tell me it was a mistake. And maybe, just maybe, I'd let myself believe her. No, if Claire wanted to betray me, I would let her. And when the time was right, I'd make sure she regretted it. The moment I saw Claire with him, something inside me snapped. Not in rage, not in sadness, in clarity. I had spent years believing in her, believing that we were untouchable, that our marriage was the kind of bond that couldn't break. But Claire wasn't satisfied with love. She needed adoration. She needed to feel wanted, not just by me, but by everyone. And now, she had found someone else to worship her. For the first time in my marriage, I saw my wife exactly for who she was. And that was when I decided I wasn't going to confront her. I was going to play the game better than she ever could. I started watching, not in an obsessive way. No late-night stalking, no desperate attempts to catch her in the act. Instead, I did something far more dangerous. I paid attention to her phone habits, to her spending, to the way she smiled when she thought no one was looking. And soon, the cracks in her lies began to show. One evening, I pretended to be asleep when she came home late. I heard the door open softly, the careful click of her heels as she tiptoed through the house. She never tiptoed. Claire loved the sound of her own entrance, the way I would look up and admire her when she walked through the door. But tonight, she was trying not to wake me. I waited until she disappeared into the bathroom, then quietly slipped out of bed. Her purse was on the dresser. I hesitated for just a second before reaching inside. Lipstick, wallet, phone, and then a hotel key card. I turned it over in my fingers, staring at the embossed logo. The Regent Hotel. She had been there recently. Very recently. I put it back exactly as I found it. Then I climbed back into bed and stared at the ceiling, my heart pounding with cold, calculating focus. Claire wasn't just having an affair. She was planning her escape. The next morning, I checked our finances. Claire had her own accounts, ones I never questioned, because I trusted her. Now, I questioned everything. And within minutes, I found what I was looking for. A hidden credit card. One I had never seen before. One with thousands of dollars in charges I couldn't explain. Luxury dinners. Designer clothing. Plane tickets. She wasn't just cheating. She was setting up a new life. And she had no idea that I knew. That night, when she kissed me goodbye and said, "Mia and I are going to a spa weekend," I smiled. "Sounds amazing," I said. "You deserve it." She beamed at me. Because in her mind, she was winning. But Claire had made one fatal mistake. She thought I was the kind of man who would sit back and let her destroy me. She had no idea what was coming next. Claire thought she was playing me. She had no idea I was about to play her. I didn't confront her. I didn't rage. I didn't demand answers. Instead, I smiled and let her think she was in control, all while I prepared to take everything away from her. The first thing I did was meet with my lawyer. We had signed a prenup before we got married. Not because I thought she would cheat, but because I had worked too damn hard for what I built. Back then, she had signed it without a second thought, laughing as she said, "Don't be ridiculous. We're forever." Forever lasted exactly 5 years, 4 months, and 9 days. Now, that prenup was about to become her worst nightmare. I sat across from my attorney, laying out everything I had gathered, the credit card statements, the hotel key, the spending records. "This is good," he said, flipping through the pages. "This isn't just an affair. She's funneling money, probably planning to leave you once she's secured her next target." I nodded. "Can we make sure she leaves with nothing?" A slow smile spread across his face. "Absolutely." Next, I started shifting assets. I moved money out of our joint accounts, making sure every dollar I had earned was protected. The house? It was in my name. The investments? Mine. The business I had built? She would never touch it. By the time I was done, Claire's financial safety net had been ripped right out from under her. And the best part? She had no idea. The second part of my plan was surveillance. If I wanted to bury her in this divorce, I needed undeniable proof of her affair. So I hired someone, a private investigator, someone who knew how to track a cheating wife without getting caught. It took less than a week to get exactly what I needed. Photos of her sneaking into his apartment, of them together at dinner, of her wrapped around him in ways she hadn't touched me in years. She looked happy, relaxed, like a woman who thought she had already won. That made it so much sweeter, because when the time came, I wasn't just going to expose her. I was going to humiliate her. That night, When she came home, I kissed her forehead like always. She smiled at me, completely unaware that her entire world was about to crash. And for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace, because Claire thought she was destroying me, but I was about to destroy her. Claire thought she was about to leave me on her terms. She had no idea I was already 10 steps ahead. For weeks, I played the part of the clueless husband, smiling, kissing her goodnight, pretending I didn't know she was sleeping in another man's bed. I let her keep lying. I let her keep digging her own grave. Because when I finally made my move, I wanted it to break her. The day I served her divorce papers, she thought we were going out for dinner. She had planned it weeks ago. Some fancy, overpriced restaurant where she would sit across from me, smile sweetly, and tell me she was leaving. She thought she would be in control. She thought I would beg. She thought she would win. But when she came downstairs, dressed in that blood-red dress she always wore when she wanted to get her way, she found me sitting at the kitchen table, a manila envelope in front of me. Her smile faltered. "What's that?" she asked. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. "Go ahead. Open it." She hesitated, her fingers tightening around the envelope as she pulled it open. And then, her entire face changed. Her smile vanished. Her breath hitched. Because inside that envelope were divorce papers. Signed, filed, finalized. She blinked, her brain struggling to process what she was looking at. I don't understand," she whispered. I gave her a slow, cold smile. "I'm divorcing you, Claire." And then I dropped the real bombshell. "You're leaving with nothing." The moment the words left my mouth, her entire body stiffened. Her head snapped up, eyes wild. What do you mean, nothing?" I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. "The prenup," I said calmly. "Remember that little piece of paper you signed before we got married? The one that states that if you ever cheat, you walk away with exactly zero." Her lips parted slightly, her breathing shallow. She remembered. And now, for the first time, she understood what it meant. She tried to laugh, but it came out hollow. You wouldn't do that to me." I tilted my head. "Wouldn't I?" Her hands trembled as she flipped through the papers, her perfect, flawless world cracking apart right in front of me. She reached for any excuse, any way out. "This is crazy," she said. "You don't want this." I shrugged. "I do." You're just upset. We can work through this." I let out a soft chuckle. "Claire, I don't love you anymore." She froze. I could see it in her eyes. The moment the realization hit, I wasn't hurt. I wasn't broken. I was done. And that scared her more than anything. She slammed the papers down on the table. "You can't do this to me." I gave her a long, slow look. I already did. For the first time since this all began, Claire had lost control. She had risked everything. Our marriage, our life, our future, because she thought she had something better waiting for her. But now, she had nothing. Her hands clenched into fists. "You bastard." I smirked. "Takes one to know one." She let out a shaky breath, her entire body trembling as she realized exactly what had happened. She had planned to leave me. Instead, I left her first. And just like that, the woman who thought she had it all, lost everything. Claire cared about one thing more than anything else. It wasn't love. It wasn't family. It wasn't even money. It was her image. She had spent years crafting the perfect facade, the devoted wife, the social butterfly, the woman who had it all. So when I destroyed that image, it wasn't just revenge. It was justice. After serving Claire the divorce papers, I didn't stop there. I wanted everyone to see her for who she really was. So I sent the proof of her affair, the pictures, the messages, the credit card statements, to every single person who mattered in her world. Her parents, her siblings, her best friends, even her boss. The carefully curated life she had built, it shattered overnight. The first call came from her sister, Lisa. She left a voicemail. "Lisa, Claire, what the hell is going on? I just saw the pictures. You cheated on him? After everything he's done for you? Call me back." Then her mother, Claire's mom. "How could you do this? I don't even recognize you. You need to fix this before it's too late." And then, the real damage, her social circle. The women she had spent years trying to impress. The ones she hosted lavish brunches for. The ones she vacationed with. The ones who envied her perfect life. They turned on her instantly. Sophie, her so-called best friend, you disgust me. You told us you had the perfect marriage, and the whole time you were sneaking around like some desperate side piece? Lose my number. Mia, you're a joke, Claire. You trashed your own husband for a man who doesn't even want you anymore. Karma's a bitch. Her group chats? Dead silent. The social invites? Gone. The admiration? Replaced with disgust. Claire wasn't just being exposed. She was being erased. And Daniel? The man she threw our marriage away for? He panicked. I made sure his business partners got the same proof I sent to Claire's friends. By the end of the week, his name was all over industry gossip. He wasn't just a homewrecker. He was a liability. Clients pulled out. Investors vanished. And just like that, Daniel Mercer, the man Claire risked everything for, decided she wasn't worth the trouble. I knew the exact moment he cut her off. Because Claire called me, crying, begging, please, we need to talk. I let it go to voicemail. Then I deleted it. That night, I poured myself a drink and watched as everything she built collapsed. The woman who once had it all, now had nothing. And I had never felt more free. Claire thought Daniel was her future. She thought he was better than me. Richer, more powerful, more exciting. She thought he would take care of her, give her the life she believed she deserved. But the moment things got messy, the moment people started whispering about his involvement in an affair, the moment his business partners started distancing themselves, Daniel ran. I wasn't surprised. Men like Daniel Mercer didn't build their empires by sticking around when things got complicated. They survived by cutting their losses. And Claire? She was now a loss. It happened fast. One day, they were still seeing each other in secret, hiding from the fallout. The next, Daniel was gone. No calls, no texts, just silence. I knew the exact moment Claire realized she had been dumped, because she called me. Twice. Then 3 times. By the 4th missed call, she left a voicemail. Claire, Ethan, please. I need to talk to you. It's important. I could hear it in her voice. The panic, the desperation. Her new life was falling apart. And for the first time, she had nowhere to turn. Out of curiosity, I did a little digging. It didn't take long to confirm what I already knew. Daniel had blocked her number. His assistant was screening her calls. He had moved on. Claire, who had always been so careful, so calculated, had made the one mistake she never thought she'd make. She bet on the wrong man. And now, she had nothing left. That weekend, I got another call. This time, it wasn't Claire. It was Lisa, her sister. She sounded hesitant, uncomfortable. Lisa, hey, Ethan. I know this is awkward, but Claire's been staying with me the past few nights. I smiled to myself. Of course she was. She had nowhere else to go. Lisa, she's not doing great. She won't say it, but I think she regrets everything. I didn't answer, because it didn't matter. Regret wouldn't fix what she did. Regret wouldn't change anything. Regret was too damn late. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about Claire, the woman who once had everything. She had love. She had a home. She had me. But she wanted more. And now, she had less than nothing. I won. And the best part? I didn't even have to lift a finger. She destroyed herself. Claire had spent her entire life being wanted. By me. By her friends. By every man who turned his head when she walked into a room. But now, no one wanted her. Not Daniel. Not her so-called friends. Not even herself. And when Claire had nothing left, she did the one thing I had been waiting for. She came crawling back to me. It was a rainy Sunday night when it happened. I was home, watching a game, beer in hand, finally at peace. Then the doorbell rang. I opened it, and there she was. Soaking wet, mascara smudged, looking like a woman who had just realized she had thrown her entire life away. Her bottom lip trembled. Ethan, I didn't move, didn't react, didn't give her anything. She swallowed hard. Can we talk? I let the silence stretch, watching as she squirmed. She was used to people rushing to comfort her, to fix things for her. Not tonight. Not anymore. Finally, I stepped aside. 5 minutes. She walked in hesitantly, her heels clicking against the hardwood. The house looked different to her now, colder, like she didn't belong here anymore. Because she didn't. She sat down on the couch, the same couch she had once curled up on, telling me about her dreams, her plans, the life we were supposed to build together. And then, softly, she whispered, "I'm sorry." I exhaled slowly, shaking my head. "For what, Claire?" Her hands tightened into fists. "For everything. For ruining us." I said nothing, because I wanted her to feel every inch of this. "I don't know what I was thinking," she continued, her voice breaking. "I thought I wanted something else. I thought I wanted more. But I was wrong." She looked up at me, eyes glistening. "I miss you," she whispered. "I miss us." I leaned back, arms crossed. "You miss me?" She nodded quickly.
Yes.
"No," I cut her off. She blinked.
What?
I tilted my head. "You don't miss me, Claire. You miss the man who loved you. The man who would have done anything for you." I let that sink in. She swallowed hard. "Ethan, please. I know I don't deserve it, but—" "You don't," I said flatly. She flinched. Good. She needed to hear this. "You had everything," I said slowly, "and you threw it away for a man who didn't even want you." She opened her mouth, then closed it, because she couldn't deny it. Claire knew the truth now, but it was too damn late. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Do you hate me?" I let out a soft, humorless laugh. "Hate you?" I repeated, shaking my head. "No." And that? That hurt her more than anything. Because if I hated her, it meant she still mattered. But Claire didn't matter to me anymore. She was just a mistake I had already erased. She wiped her eyes, trying to hold herself together. "Ethan, I just need to know if there's any chance. Any chance at all." I studied her for a long moment. Then, finally, I spoke. "There's no coming back from this, Claire." She inhaled sharply, nodding slowly, accepting the finality of it. She stood up, hesitating for just a second before walking to the door. Her shoulders slumped, her head down. The once perfect Claire, the woman who had always been in control, now looked like a ghost of herself. I followed her to the door, watching as she stepped outside into the rain. She turned back to me one last time. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. I nodded. Then I closed the door. As I locked it behind her, something inside me settled. I had waited for this moment, for the apology, for the regret, for the proof that I had one. And now that I had it, I felt nothing at all. Claire was always the woman who had it all. The perfect image, the admiration, the power. But after that night, the night she came begging for forgiveness and I shut the door in her face, everything changed. She wasn't Claire, the beautiful socialite anymore. She wasn't Claire, the woman men chased after. She wasn't Claire, the woman who traded in love for something better. Because there was nothing left for her to trade. She moved in with her sister, Lisa. It wasn't by choice. Her credit cards were maxed out. Her bank accounts? Nearly empty. The new life she had been planning? Gone before it even started. Daniel had been her safety net, the man she had counted on to catch her when she jumped. Instead, he had let her fall. I heard bits and pieces from mutual friends. Lisa had pushed her to get a job. A real one. Something Claire hadn't done in years. And suddenly, the woman who once looked down on people who settled for ordinary lives was forced to live one. She worked reception at a local law firm. A far cry from the glamorous life she once flaunted. Gone were the designer bags. Gone were the expensive trips. Gone were the fawning admirers. Now, she was just another woman trying to survive. And no one pitied her. Because Claire had done this to herself. One day, I ran into Lisa at a cafe. She hesitated before walking up to me. Then, finally, she sighed. "She's miserable, you know?" I smirked. "I'm sure." Lisa shook her head. "No, I mean it's different. She's not just miserable because she lost her lifestyle. She's miserable because she knows she can't fix it." I didn't say anything, because it didn't matter. Lisa sighed, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly. "She won't admit it, but she regrets everything," she said quietly. "She talks about you sometimes." I raised an eyebrow. "Yeah." Lisa nodded. She says she had everything she ever wanted, and she destroyed it. I exhaled slowly, setting down my cup. Yeah, I said. She did. Later that night, I thought about Claire, the woman who had once been untouchable, the woman who had once held my heart in her hands and crushed it. And now? Now, she was just a woman who made the biggest mistake of her life. And I didn't care anymore. The day I truly let go of Claire wasn't the day I served her divorce papers. It wasn't the day she lost her friends. It wasn't even the night she stood in the rain, begging me to take her back. No, it was the day I met someone else. Her name was Emma. I wasn't looking for her. I wasn't looking for anyone. But life has a funny way of giving you exactly what you need when you least expect it. It started at a bookstore. I was flipping through a novel I had no intention of buying when I heard a soft laugh beside me. You know, that's a terrible book. I glanced up, and there she was. Emma. She had that effortless kind of beauty. Nothing flashy, nothing staged. Just real. Claire had been carefully curated perfection. Emma was human, and I like that. I don't know why I stayed and talked to her. Maybe because she smiled at me like I was someone worth knowing. Maybe because, for the first time in a long time, I felt something that wasn't anger or regret. Maybe because, when she laughed, it wasn't calculated. It was genuine. And after everything I had been through, I realized I didn't just want that. I deserved it. Emma and I started seeing each other. Slowly. Naturally. No games. No lies. No hidden hotel keycards. She didn't need the attention of a room full of strangers to feel valued. She didn't crave constant validation. She just wanted me. And that was enough. One night, as we lay on the couch, her head resting on my shoulder, she murmured, "You're quiet tonight." I exhaled, tightening my arm around her. Just thinking. About what? I hesitated. Then, finally, I said it. How lucky I am that my ex-wife cheated on me. Emma pulled back slightly, raising an eyebrow. That's a hell of a perspective. I smiled. If she hadn't, I wouldn't be here with you. Her expression softened. She kissed me. And in that moment, I knew Claire was nothing but a memory now. A mistake I would never make again. Claire had disappeared from my life. Or so I thought. It had been nearly a year since the divorce. A year since I had last seen her. A year since I had shut the door in her face and walked away without looking back. I had moved on. I had Emma. I had peace. And then, one night, my phone rang. And for the first time in months, it was Claire. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Her name looked foreign now, like it belonged to a different life. A different me. I almost didn't answer. But a small part of me, the part that once loved her, that once fought for her, wanted to know why she was calling. So I picked up. I didn't say anything at first. I let her speak first. Her voice was soft, hesitant. "Ethan." I exhaled slowly. "Claire." A pause. Then, barely above a whisper, "I regret everything." I leaned back against the couch, staring at the ceiling. I wasn't surprised. I had been waiting for this moment. But now that it was here, I felt nothing. "I think about us all the time," she continued. "I think about how good we had it, about how I ruined it. And I just—" She let out a shaky breath. "I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry." I closed my eyes, not out of sadness, but out of relief, because I had waited to hear those words for so long. And now that I had, I realized I didn't need them anymore. I smiled faintly. Then, in the calmest voice possible, I said, "Claire, I forgave you a long time ago." She inhaled sharply, as if she hadn't expected that. "But that doesn't mean I'll ever take you back." Silence. And in that silence, I knew she had finally lost me. For good. She sniffled, trying to hold herself together. Her voice broke. "I just wish I could go back." I sighed. "Some mistakes," I said quietly, "are permanent." And then, I ended the call. And this time, I didn't look back. Claire was gone. For good this time. No more texts. No more calls. No more ghosts of a past life trying to claw their way back in. And me? I had never felt freer. A week after that call, I sat on my balcony with a glass of whiskey, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. Emma was inside, humming softly as she flipped through a book, completely unaware of how much she had saved me. Not by fixing me, not by making me forget, but by simply being real. She was everything Claire had never been, and for the first time, I wasn't thinking about what I had lost. I was thinking about what I had gained. That night, as I scrolled through my phone, I saw it. A final message. From Claire. I hesitated for only a second before opening it. It was short. Just 5 words. I'll always love you, Ethan. I stared at the screen. Then, slowly, I smiled. Not out of sadness. Not out of anger. But because I finally had the perfect response. I pressed one button. Delete. Then, I put my phone down, walked inside, and kissed Emma. Claire was my past. Emma was my future. And some mistakes? Stay mistakes. The end. If you like this story, please like and subscribe to the channel.